about now?
Welcome back to Brand's work. The Brand mic.
Turn it on or not? Turn it on.
How about now? Now I have a technical question. Does anybody have any reader glasses? I forgot mine. Dave? Oh, here, I'll take it. Thank you. I don't know what I'd be saying. So, thank you, Bill, for that introduction, and thank you all for being here. I'm grateful to see so many faces. As Bill said, I'm going to be talking about how embracing our shadow, our dark side, can brighten the light of our wholeness. I'd like to begin by sharing the refrain from one of Leonard Cohen's most famous songs, Anthem. And in that song, he wrote, "Ring the bell that still can ring. Forget your perfect offering. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets through. Forget about perfection. That's what Cohen tells us. The cracks in ourselves and in our lives are what lets the light come in, and these cracks serve us far more than our quest for perfection by letting in that light." And Cohen was reluctant to say much about what he meant in his songs. He wanted them to speak for themselves, but he did say later about the importance of our imperfections. That's where the resurrection is. And that's where the return is. That's where the repentance is. It's with the confrontation of the brokenness of things. But obviously Cohen was not the first to talk about the worth of accepting and embracing our dark side. 8 centuries ago, Rumi wrote about the same thing. And here's what he said in an excerpt from his poem, "Shadow and Light Source Both." How does a part of the world leave the world? How does wetness leave water? Don't try to put out fire by throwing on more fire. Don't wash a wound with blood. No matter how fast you run, your shadow keeps up. Sometimes it's in front. Only full overhead sun diminishes your shadow. But that shadow has been serving you. What hurts you blesses you. Darkness is your candle. Your boundaries are your quest. Now the shadow that Rumi talks about is our darkness, is our darkness, and the qualities in ourselves that we strongly dislike, that we reject. It's those flaws that we try to hide from ourselves and from others, and that we do try to run away from, but they always keep up with us. And just as Cohen tells us to forget our perfect offering, Rumi says, no, don't run from your shadow. He advises us to accept it as necessary to our wholeness, as inseparable as wetness is to water. Now, Rumi and Cohen are just a couple of the many spiritual and philosophical and religious and psychological thinkers, as diverse as Parker Palmer and Carl Jung, who have advised us now and in the past to embrace this challenging paradox, that by learning about, appreciating, and yes, loving exactly what we hate in ourselves, we actually free the light of wholeness to radiate within our lives. Now, how can this be true? Well, to explain, I'd like to share a bit of my own history. In the late 90s, without realizing it. I was in a prolonged struggle to deny a major piece of my own shadow. At that time, my home life was giving new meaning to the word dysfunctional. I was trying to compensate for the unpredictable behavior of my unstable second husband. I was also trying to stop the self-destructive coping behavior of my 2 teenage children. And during that sad time, my shadow whispered to me over and over, and I foolishly listened. You have the power to navigate everybody and everything to accomplish all the safe landings your struggling family so desperately needs. Take charge, be in control. And the starring role that I need to play? Air traffic controller for my entire family. And then all my planes crashed. And when this happened, and only when this happened, did I begin to realize that the only behavior that I could control was my own. And that to do that, I had to bring into the light some sorry parts of my shadow, which included my shame at the prospect of a second divorce, and my deeper shame that my kids needed help I couldn't provide. And only when I faced and acted upon those realities that I needed to end my second marriage and that my kids both needed deep and structured professional support to heal, was I able to begin to focus on myself and to begin hesitantly to bring my own brokenness into the light, to accept and embrace it. Looking back at that time now, I realize that that I was beginning to live into an affirmative prayer, changing my life by changing my mind about myself and my shadow. I found myself led by Spirit to take a huge step. At 50, I enrolled in an experiential graduate program in organization development offered by the National Training Laboratory at American University in Washington, D.C., where in order to become more effective consultants and to be more in touch with ourselves, my classmates and I were led into many hours interacting with each other in structured yet open-ended activities designed to help us better understand our deepest selves, including our shadows. Why? Well, because we were to learn that we needed to understand and accept both our strengths and our failings as human beings if we were to be more effective in dealing with the coming inner challenges of our organizational work and the rest of our lives. This work on self appeared just when I needed it. Another spiritual calling that I answered after finishing my graduate work was to learn how to facilitate inner leadership retreats for the Center for Courage and Renewal. And Parker Palmer, the program founder, who is a spiritual author and activist, turned out to be another fierce advocate for embracing shadow. His loving spiritual mentorship would not only introduce me to transformational leadership, it would lead me into what was to become my life work. Parker believes deeply in the paradox that the essence of our wholeness is both light and shadow. He makes the case that doing inner work with our shadow is not only absolutely essential, but it offers incredible payoffs, which include developing compassion for ourselves and nurturing our ability to feel empathy for others. I love the beauty of Parker's words on this topic. They clearly embody our CSL spiritual value of compassion for others. He says, if we can't hold our own inner complexities as both and, I'm both perfect and flawed. instead of either or. I'm either perfect or flawed. We can't possibly extend that kind of hospitality to another person. There's an ancient truth to being human. We cannot give to others what we are unable to give ourselves. That's why inner work is never selfish. Ultimately, it will benefit other people. So my take on Parker's words is this, that our ability to forgive others for simply being human is completely tied to our ability to forgive ourselves for simply being human. And Parker's ideas on shadow and forgiveness tap into our CSL value of forgiveness, which reads, as we forgive ourselves and others, we become free of the burdens of shame, blame, and resentment. He also cautions us about the danger of projecting our own shadow onto others. The darkness that we carry within ourselves, he writes, is the ultimate source of the shadows that we project onto other people. If we don't understand that the enemy is within, we will find 1,000 ways to make someone out there the enemy. Brene Brown, TED talker and author, couldn't agree more with Parker and Cohen and Rumi. She says, owning our own story can be hard, but not nearly as difficult as spending our lives running from it. Embracing our vulnerabilities is risky, but not nearly as dangerous as giving up on love and belonging and joy, the experiences that make us most vulnerable. Only when we are brave enough to explore the darkness will we discover the infinite power of our light. But how are we supposed to live into these ideas about shadow? What practices might help us find light in our shadow and bring that light into our lives? And how do we even know what these imperfections are? Well, I'm here to tell you that our shadows, each of our shadows, is our very own. And you can think of it as whatever you would do almost anything to avoid facing yourself. To know your shadow, we must look at our mistakes and our fears and look at those times when we have pushed down the ugly parts of ourselves. That our shadow parts often and usually jump out when we least expect it. For example, think about a time when you found yourself overreacting to a situation or a person. By paying attention to our over-the-top negative reactions, we can create opportunities to reflect on our shadow. If I can ask, what is it in me that allows this situation to upset me so? How does my reaction to someone else enlighten me about some aspect of my own darkness that I might be denying? Wonderful questions for reflection. Another way to invite shadow into the light is to think about the last time you leaped to challenge someone else's ridiculous belief. Here's where turning to wonder comes in very handy. Yes, turning to wonder. By simply wondering, how did this person come to hold views so different from mine? By gently exploring with another how his or her challenging beliefs arose, we can open ourselves to think about where our own defensive shadow comes from. And finally, a third simple way to get in touch with the parts of our shadow is to realize that our shadow is simply often our strength overplayed. For example, I'm a problem solver. And I drive people crazy with free advice that they haven't asked for. Hello, shadow. I'm also empathetic. But I have a history of becoming overly involved in others' pain, forgetting my need for boundaries and self-care. Another shadow. I'm also persistent. I get things done. but I don't let go of disagreements easily and have been accused of wanting the last word. So make your own list of strengths and think about, what happens when I overdo it? So I'm suggesting that paying attention to and reflecting on our own difficult behaviors is a wonderful way to cast light on our shadow and find the light that that awareness offers us. I've learned that when I'm able to name my darker parts, which, I'm human, can't always do, but when I am able to name them and own them and try to understand them, I'm able to see the gold that embracing this brokenness brings into my life. And I do mean gold. If you're wondering what this repaired piece of pottery might have to do with shadow, I'll tell you. Centuries ago, the Japanese evolved a form of art called kintsugi, which literally means golden joinery. It's about a 400-year-old art, and it involves repairing broken pottery with gold. And it embodies the artistic philosophy that the scars are part of the design, and embracing these flaws and imperfections creates a stronger, more beautiful piece of art than the original unbroken whole. And it teaches us an important lesson. In bringing our brokenness into the light of our awareness, we too become more unique, more beautiful, more resilient, and whole. Candace Kamai, who's an expert on kintsugi, said, bringing broken pottery pieces back together with gold is a metaphor for embracing your flaws and imperfections. It's closely related, kintsugi is closely related to another philosophy you probably have heard of called wabi-sabi, which is the Japanese belief that imperfection is beautiful. So I offer you this striking metaphor, and you can go online and Google kintsugi images, and you'll see a lot of beautiful work that's been done with this technique. But I offer this to you as a way to help you visualize how beautiful you are when you are embracing and celebrating your brokenness as well as your dark, as well as your light. And one last thing. Omid Safi, who's the director of Islamic Studies at Duke University and a contributor on Being, believes that both wabi-sabi, the celebration of imperfection, and kintsugi, the golden repair of imperfections, does create a more beautiful whole. And in his article, Illuminating the Beauty of Our Broken Pieces, he wrote a prayer, and the folded piece of paper that you got with your program, I hope most of you got it, or that you can share if you didn't get it. I've taken his prayer and converted it into a responsive prayer reading that I would ask you to read with me this morning. And I'll read the speaker parts, and I ask you to join me in the congregation part. Give me someone who knows their own vulnerability and sees mine.
Give me someone whose cracked spaces are golden.
Give me someone who has helped to do kintsugi to my cracked spaces.
Give me someone who is open to me doing kintsugi to their cracked heart.
So friends, wabi-sabi me. Let's repair each other.
Let's see what is cracked in each other.
Let's heal our broken spaces.
Let's fill what's broken with gold.
May we emerge more beautiful, more whole, and luminous. So, my love, come and see the beauty in my cracked spaces.
I see the beauty in yours.
You are not a heart that I will discard.
Do not discard me.
We can emerge from this healing golden, more beautiful.
May all that is cracked and broken be healed and illuminated. And so it is.
Thank you for this opportunity to share with you my thoughts.
Thank you, Krista, for sharing with us. Yeah, just a wonderful talk. I believe it's time for the band to regale us with another song.
Yes, it is. And I invite you to stand as we sing As Within, So Without. It's on your handout that you have there. And if you'd like to remain seated, that's fine too.